I am going to be on men for a while, and that sounded really weird, but I'm going to stay on the topic of men for a minute.
Anchors and Eagles brings listeners into the studio with host Adam Facenda, a tattoo artist turned story chaser. And now, on to the show.
Thank you for tuning in to Anchors and Eagles one more time. I appreciate you guys. This podcast is about everything under the sun. Mostly right now, we're going to be talking about mental health. And I'll give stories about stuff that's happened to me in my life and where it led me. Most of all, I'm just here to help you guys understand that you're not alone in this world. And I keep saying guys, right? I don't want you guys to think, or everyone to think, I should say, that this is only about men. I am going to be on men for a while, and that sounded really weird, but I'm going to stay on the topic of men for a minute, because this is one thing that I know isn't talked about enough. Suicide rates are higher than ever right now in men. And man, I did a lot of logistics, and I don't have them in front of me right now. But I'll tell you this year so far, this is 2025, it is higher than previous years, and they don't really know why. And the age groups are almost, when I say age groups, I'm saying like teenagers to young adults, and then, middle-aged folk, and then elderly people. Now, here's what's crazy. It said people later in age. And I do believe it was 60 up, that men are more suicidal the ages of 60 years old and up. Now, I would constitute that as being maybe, screwed up your business, your wife, you're ill, you have a terminal illness or something like that. And I wish I could really dial into that to understand it a little bit more, because, it's right around the corner for me. And then the next group was, I believe, 30 to 50. And I just hit the 50 this year. It kind of was scary, because I do know that I've had a lot of friends kill themselves in the past. And I know I've thought about it, like what would happen if I wasn't here anymore. Not that I would actually hurt myself. And I've always been too afraid to die. So I had that going for me, as morbid as that sounds. The fact that the younger group is actually starting to catch up is kind of worrisome to me. Now, you can say it's, you go political, which I will try never to do on this podcast unless someone brings it up. Sometimes this is going to happen. But the fact that the younger age men are starting to catch up to the later age men, which I would say 60 and above, is kind of scary, because that means there's not going to be a logistic of the in-between pretty soon. It's just going to be really young men or really old men, because they're not going to, the mid-age guys, you know what I'm trying to say, right? No? Okay. So as we age up, and this is happening, there's going to be less men, basically, is what I'm trying to get at. And it's very scary to me. I don't know. I never really thought about these things, You watch these, I don't know if you guys have ever been interested in finding these YouTubes where you can get a house for $1 in Italy. And I was like, what is that about? I went down this wormhole. And I'm like, man, $1? Move to Italy? It's beautiful there. And then you realize the reason why these villages are just disappearing is because the young people moved away and didn't continue on in the village. These villages are just beautiful. They've been there for hundreds of years. They just need some rehab. But then again, the people that are moving there are, once again, older in age. They're not young people. And I think if they just gave away the housing over there, people would just move there in groves. And that's the only way you're going to keep that population growing. If our suicide rate keeps going up in young men, we're not going to have middle-aged men or older men. We're just not going to have men at all, especially with how the birth rates are going right now. And you don't realize until you get older how important that is. Now, when I was younger, I always said, man, these younger group of kids, they gotta step it up, And I'm 25 when I'm thinking this, I'm like watching my little brother and stuff. I'm like, they got to step it up, man. Like, if we have a bunch of dummies out there, by the time I'm 60 or 70, there's going to be a bunch of dummies running this government, and that's not going to be good. And I always refer back to that movie, Idiocracy. It's like one of my favorite movies, just because it's coming so true. And that's about as much as I'll talk about politics, because you can sit on either side of the fence, but you can see it's all screwed up. And it's not because of just one bad actor or one bad president. It's literally because there's nothing but dummies running this country right now. And they're all self-serving. And I guess that's what happens, right? You make a bunch of money, you become self-serving, and I don't know, like lose touch of younger people, and you lose touch of the working class. And stuff like that, So who knows? Who knows what happens when you become a politician? I don't know. I probably will never know. Actually, I know I'll never know because I just care about people too much. So no one would want to hire me. Back to what I was trying to say. This turn of events of the suicide rates going up, we need to put a stop to it. And it's not like a drug or anything like that. It's literally because men have been beat up so bad. I did some more research, right? So it wasn't just about suicide. I actually went out and I started researching because something sparked in my head that I started reading a bunch of books last year, and these books were telling me, no, you just put up boundaries and there's healthy stuff with your loved ones and stuff like that. But if they're not in line with you, you just cut them off and move on. And I was like, man, there's a real narrative here. Multiple books I was reading were saying the same thing, all about you. Be selfish, be selfish, be selfish. Now, my mother raised me to be kind, sweet, and caring. My father said, you need to take care of people. And the people that you love, you have to take care of the most. You'll hear in all different podcasts that I'll make that my parents weren't the greatest parents, but they did install a couple little values in me that just really stuck. Thank the Lord I didn't keep a hold of all the bad stuff that they had done around me or done to me. But those are two things: taking care of people, And I think that's the biggest thing right now is we need to start taking care of men. This narrative of the books that I was reading, because they were also I was told to read these books by the person I was with in a very long relationship with. And I saw our relationship changing as well. And not just because he was reading the books, but, I wasn't present. I was in my own, what do I say, mental flood of garbage that was going on in my life, and just, I didn't take care of myself. And then when I did, it was too late. But that's besides the point. I want to get back to the book. So the books that I was reading, they all had the same narrative. And this narrative was, you can do it by yourself. You don't need anybody, blah, blah, blah. And then if you really zoom out, and if you think that there's thousands of people that are reading these books, if not millions of people reading these books, and they all get on that bandwagon where, oh, well, you know what? If he doesn't like me, or she doesn't like me, or she doesn't like this about me, well, I'll just go find somebody else, and I'll just go do my own thing, and life will be so much better, and brr, brr, brr. That's what these books are making people think. Why is divorce rate so high? Why is marriage rate so low? Why are people so sad and so suicidal? And it's just, why? Because there's a narrative that is set, and I'm not saying this is a political narrative. I'm saying this is just a narrative that is set in the world right now. Maybe it's because some of those people are in bad relationships, which is what I find very funny. Some of the books that I was reading, they tell you about how if it isn't working with your significant other, then you should just leave them. But they're in a relationship with their significant other that they met in high school and have never been with anybody else. So how can you give me advice on relationships? You know how to navigate through one. If anything, you've been in a relationship for 25, 30 years with the same person. Instead of telling people that they shouldn't work together and try to figure out how to stay together or how to change and get better for themselves so they can be more servant to the significant other and more caring and more present for them, why not write those books? Because you have no right to tell others about relationships. I'm sure you can be a motivational speaker and say, hey, pick up your pants, blah, 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 like one leg at a time, move forward, one step forward, That's great. But telling them to just live alone, you can do it by yourself, leaves you to nowhere but being lonely. And I don't know if you've lived in a lonely mindset, but it is not fun. Coming home alone is not fun. I have 2 dogs. I love them to death. If they weren't there, I probably wouldn't come home. I probably also wouldn't get up every day. I mean, that's where I'm at in my life. And I just recently discovered that I'm happier when I'm at work than when I'm at home. And it's not to the fact that I'm making money. It's really to the fact that I'm not alone and I'm serving people. I'm helping people. What I do is I tattoo. And a lot of people call that it's like, oh, tattoo therapy. But I'll tell you this, there's one truth about it. And I was talking to my friend George in a previous podcast on a different channel that he believes that when you go through trauma and you have all these things that you store in your body and your brain and your soul from the trauma in the past, when you're going through trauma, you can get back to the root of where it came from. So he does tattoo therapy, legit tattoo therapy. And the sessions is really remarkable, you know? And it's funny because I have a lot of clients. I mean, I've been tattooing over 2 decades. So I have a lot of clients, and a lot of the clients will do a quick tattoo on them, and then they're like trying to figure out like what's the next tattoo. And I'm now realizing right now at this moment that the people that come in and get a bunch of little bangers, they're really worried about the budget that they have, but they want to keep coming and getting tattooed. Now, I'm not saying that just because of I'm the person tattooing them, but it's because of the relationship that we have during that tattoo. I'm a caring person. My mentor said we're healers, and I feel that's true. At some point, we are healers. Most people coming in and getting tattooed are going through something really heavy, a divorce, separation, losing a loved one, losing an animal. That's I had a lot this past week. And I mean, that really tugs at my heartstrings. But anyway, I realize that the people that come in and get a bunch of bangers, because I was that kid too. And what I mean by bangers, I mean like palm-sized tattoos. Those people are enjoying the environment that they're in, and they're going through a little bit of trauma, and they're actually like letting some person into their psyche and their soul while they're getting tattooed. It's amazing what people will tell you whenever you're hurting them just a little bit. So I think George has something. I think George has nailed it on the head. And I think that's also why I enjoy doing very large pieces, mostly on arms, not so much backs or legs, because I can really connect with somebody. I'll tell you a quick story, and then I'll move on. I have a client that when I first opened my shop, we had a mutual friend together. Her name is Kato, and Kato is probably my one and only fan here that listens to my podcast. He was young. I wasn't as young, but we both had our egos in front of us, and we'd even take the time to actually get to know each other. And there was some resentment towards each other because we both had this one female in common. And I shouldn't say female. She's a very special person. Sorry, Kato, if you're listening to this, you are wonderful and you love your family and your husband. And I'm very proud to still be able to watch your journey in life. So let's not discredit Kato. He started tattooing him, and I didn't even realize, but during the consultation, I'm like, man, this guy looks really familiar. He's a really handsome guy. Where do I know this guy? And finally, he like just, it hit me like he'd come and gone tattooed in my shop. And we never really connected. Like I said, there was this stupid ego thing going on between the two of us. And it was pretty funny that within the very first session of tattooing him, just the outline alone, he and I had so much in common. And I don't know, guys, you've probably gone through this a lot. Maybe women go through this too. You have this like kind of like quiet hatred towards somebody, and then later on you find out it's probably because you should have been best friends instead of mortal enemies. I don't think we were mortal enemies, but you know what I'm trying to say. He and I ended up having really great sessions, and I remember towards the end of it, and I'm so thankful that he got such a big tattoo on multiple levels. First off, I got to do amazing big tattoo, and he got to come in, and we got to talk, and we were doing 3-hour sessions, and we're just talking about real things, like things that men should be talking about to each other. And at the end of it, I was like, oh man, like now what? I'm not going to see you in a week or so. So should we go on a date or something? Like a man date or something? And it was very funny. So now we only talk through Messenger or Instagram DMs, but I'm now realizing, circling back, that George is right. When you're going through pain, you tend to revisit the trauma physically and just talk about things. And I think you become the most real person. I don't think many people can lie in the middle of getting tattooed or going through pain. I don't know. That's another study that should be done. I think when you're putting someone through pain that's been through trauma, it really comes out. And I'm just so honored to be able to be that person over these years. I don't know where this podcast started in the beginning, but right now I'm getting kind of sentimental. But yeah, I mean, that's why I think people get addicted to getting tattooed. I guess in some ways my mentor was right. George was right. I'm a healer and somewhat of a therapist because we go through this trauma, but I'm not certified to give you advice. And that's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is just about being real and touching on stuff that most people don't want to touch on. Men are afraid to talk about these things. And if you see a man out there with a lot of tattoos, you can almost guarantee that person has gone through some trauma, but fortunately they've worked through some of it, and maybe not two at the same time. Maybe that's why they kept getting tattooed. But That's food for thought. I just want to end this podcast with saying, once again, thank you for listening to Anchors and Eagles. Guys, I appreciate you, and hopefully this one wasn't too long or too boring, and hopefully you tune into another one real soon. Have a great one, guys.